Hi everybody, this is Anna from Mochi Mochi Land. I've got a new pattern in the fall 2023 issue of Knitty magazine. That's at knitty.com. My pattern is called Inside Cat. It was inspired by my new picture book, Cat Side Up, Cat Side Down. This is a picture book that shows a bunch of knitted cats demonstrating different prepositions. So Inside Cat is a bookmark that can go inside. That's a preposition you see inside a book. So I'm going to show you some pattern highlights in this video. I meant for the pattern to be as simple as possible for something that maybe even advanced beginners could tackle. For the tail, we start at the bottom, casting on 3 stitches. This is a long tail cast on that I'm doing right here. The tail is worked as an I-cord, which just means after you cast on, you don't turn, you slide the stitches to the right end of the needle, and your working yarn is attached to the left stitch, the leftmost stitch. You will knit the first stitch and just bring this working yarn across the back to knit the first stitch. And now it's just like normal, right? The working yarn's attached on the right here. So you knit the other 2. You're going to do this for 16 rows. So that's like row 1. Then you slide the stitches again for row 2. It's 16 rows. If you lose count, don't worry about it. Your cat could have a slightly longer or shorter tail. Okay, I've finished knitting 16 rows or so of this I-cord. My next row, I will work also like an I-cord, sliding the stitches down this way, but it has 1 increased stitch in it. The row is knit 1, knit front back, knit 1. This is the first row in the torso section. So now there are 4 stitches instead of 3. From here on, you're working the pattern flat. That just means that you will be turning. So you turn before the next row. And this one's also an increase row. So we're increasing to make the body wider. We're right here now, right at the cat's butt. This is knit 1 and a knit front back twice. Knit front back is you knit the stitch, leave it on the left needle when you pull the yarn through, and then insert the right needle through the back loop, back half of the loop on the left needle, the same stitch. Knit that and then slip it off. I'll do that once more. It's a knit, just like normal, leave the stitch on the left needle, insert the right needle through the back loop, knit, and slip it off. And then it's a knit 1 there. Now we're turning again, and we keep increasing for a few more rows. So this is a good opportunity to put on a favorite TV show or listen to a podcast, have a chat with a friend, call up your mom, and just keep knitting while you're doing whatever you want. And you don't have to keep track of which side is front or back because the I-cord is pretty much just a tube. And yes, don't worry about doing exactly 46 rows. I've just finished knitting about 46 rows of garter stitch, knitting every row. And now there's a little bit of decrease stitches going on to make some shoulders for your cat. A cat's got to have shoulders. So that's, let's see, row 67. It's a knit 1, knit 2 together twice. So you are, it's just what it sounds like. Sticking your needle through 2 stitches and knitting them together. And knit 2 together twice. Wait, knit 2 together twice. There's one more. Oh, now there's an increase again to start widening for the head. So this is you're knitting front back into every stitch. So we're increasing again from 8 stitches to 16 stitches. This is setting us up to make the head 3-dimensional. We will divide these stitches onto 2 double pointed needles next. So this finishes up the torso section. Now I am moving on to the head section of Inside Cat. I'm going to turn my working yarns over here on the right. Now we're gonna start working with more than 2 needles. Slip the first stitch purlwise onto another needle. And this is slightly awkward, but you're gonna hold it in back and then pick up another double pointed needle and slip the next stitch purlwise, and then this needle goes in front. So we're emptying this needle with all the stitches and putting them on these 2 parallel needles, and we're alternating back, front, back, front until we do all 16 stitches. So there will be 8 stitches on the needle in back and 8 stitches on the needle in front. When you have all your stitches distributed on these 2 parallel needles, you're set up to do round 1 of the head. We're going to start knitting in a round. Yarn is attached to this back right stitch. The front right stitch is the first stitch in the round, so we're going to be joining the yarn from the back needle to the front and knitting across this way onto a 3rd needle. When this needle's emptied, we'll just turn the whole thing around and start in the second half of the round with this stitch here to the end. So let's do round 1 together. Start with a knit 1. Then, whoops, I lost my stitch. I lost 2 stitches. I knit front back twice in the next 2 stitches. That's going to increase here to make the head round. Then it's knit 2. Knit front back twice. Oops. Next it's knit 2. There's only 1 stitch left on this needle, so that means I'm knitting this stitch, emptied this needle, slide the stitches to the middle so they won't fall off. Now I'm going to rotate the whole thing around and continue on. This is the second of that knit 2 that comes in the middle of the round. And for the second half, you'll notice it's not perfectly identical, because in this round, in this half of the round, on this needle, it's a knit front back here and then knit 4. Knit front back, knit 1. So now I have more stitches on the front needle than the back, and that's because I wanted the cat's head to lay flat and to stick out more 3-dimensionally this direction. So we've done increased stitches here and just a little bit on the sides here to make the head come out this way. After this first round, you start using the needles, your stitches on 3 needles and knitting with a 4th. You don't have to. You could keep going this way on the 2. But to add another needle, you can just take some of the stitches from this needle and from this, so this is like the middle of the round, and slip them onto a 3rd DPN. I don't usually worry too much about number of stitches on each needle. As long as your stitch count is right at the end of the round, then you're good. And this is just a knit round. So you start your first stitch in the round, knitting with a 4th needle, is right here. And then once you finish this needle, you just rotate a little bit. Continue on with this needle, and then the back. And the trick to working with double pointed needles is you're still knitting with 2 needles at a time, and you ignore the other ones and let them hold your stitches. So I've emptied this needle, rotating around to find the next stitch that comes next to the left. Slide those stitches down a little bit to access them, and now I'm working the next needle. Do this one, slide the stitches down, rotate a little bit, continue on to the next stitch to the left. And there I've knitted 1 round. And you're going to continue doing increased stitches for the next round, and then you just knit for 8 rounds, and then there's some decreases. So we'll get to the top of the head next. I just finished round 14 on the head of my inside cat, and it's time to stuff. I recommend using polyester fiber fill like this, but you can also use yarn scraps because it's really not too much you have to stuff, and I don't think it's really worth buying a whole bag if this is a one-time project for you. Hopefully it's not. Hopefully you love toys and want to make a ton more. I have lots of patterns. Anyway, enough stuffing so that you're filling out the shape, that the stitches aren't being real stretched out. I think about, it's nice and springy, squishy. That's about a good amount. So once you've stuffed the head, you do another knit round. And then there's 1 more decrease to get to 8 stitches. I've just finished round 16 on the head, so I have 8 stitches left on my needles, and it's time to close it up. Cut the tail, leaving I leave a lot. Usually this is like 6 inches or so. And place that tail on a tapestry or darning needle, like so. And now the needle is going to just go through those stitches in order, purlwise, to get them all on the tail. Once you have all the stitches on the tail, pull them tightly. That closes up the top. And then I stick my needle straight back down in the top and poke it out elsewhere. Pull it tightly, but pinch up here a little bit so I'm not flattening the head. And I like to make it a little extra secure, so I'm going to make an extra stitch just vertically down a little ways, so this yarn is a little more woven into the project. You can do that several times if you'd like, and these stitches won't be getting loose. I'm ready to embroider a face onto my cat. First, you want to find the front of the head. It should be pretty simple. You can see that the front is more 3-dimensional, sticks out more than the back, which is meant to be flat. eyes are going to go about halfway down the face, so find where that is, and they're going to be spaced about 4 stitches apart. So you want to find the center and then figure out where 4 stitches apart is. So this is where one eye would go and another would go over here. Now I'm going to poke my black yarn with the tapestry needle straight through the back of the head and bring it out just to the left of where I want an eye to go. Pull it most of the way through. I'm going to make one horizontal stitch, just one leg of a stitch over, and poke the needle straight through where this black yarn is coming out. So I'm splitting the black yarn, pull it through and go back down the same place again. And this time I'm going to bring it out just to the left of where I want my other eye to go. When you split that black yarn, it just helps it make a little more of a round eye, I found, and it keeps it in place too. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. Go half a stitch over, one leg of a stitch, poke through the black. When I bring the needle out, pull the yarn through, go back down the same place. This time I'm going to poke out the back of the head again. These eyes are pretty secure since you did that thing where you split the yarn, but I also usually poke going in the same spot here, the yarn through the head a little bit more just to have more of that black yarn inside. And I don't know, it's just something I prefer to do to have more of a tail inside the body. So now I've got some eyeballs. A nose is done about the same way. Just below and between the eyes, I do my nose a slightly longer stitch, so I'm going across a full stitch or 2 legs, making a couple stitches for the nose. I'm gonna trust that's gonna stay in place and just cut these tails off. And whiskers, I use a thinner yarn. This is a fingering weight yarn as opposed to the worsted weight I was using. Or if your worsted weight is something that you can pull apart, you can just separate the ply and use one of these. That'll work just as well. And these are, I think, kind of self-explanatory. They're just longer stitches that come out a little bit below the nose and just to the outside of an eye, and go diagonal about to the width of 2 stitches. And try to make them pretty symmetrical is good. Now we've got whiskers. Now we're going to attach the different pieces on, starting with the ears. This is the tail that I left at the cast on. This is where my ear finished. That's the tip of it. So I put the tail from cast on onto my tapestry needle. Figure out placement of the ear. It's nice to stitch the edges, the front and the, what do you call it, right and the left sides just a little bit forward so that the ear can be concave. But since we're attaching a flat piece to a 3-dimensional piece and we don't want it to lay flat, I'm just going under these cast on stitches a little bit, slightly haphazardly, and trying to make my stitches in a more or less straight row, look exactly where I want the base of the ear to go. This can be a little bit of trial and error to get it placed just right. This might be a little bit too much toward the top of the head, but I will stitch it on like this for now and not weave in this end. I'll just leave it in case I want to replace it differently. The other ear also has the tail on this side, of course, because they're made the same way. So this ear, I'm going to start stitching beginning at the top of the head and work and go outside. So there's no real special trick to how you attach these ears. The placement seems all right to me, I think. This outside stitch, I'm going to go a little bit more forward to pull it forward. Now we've got these tails at the ends, and the ears look kind of, I don't know, big, long. You can use the tails to help shape the ear as you weave it down into the ear and the head. I'm going to turn the cat this way. Poke this tail down through the front, these purl stitches, just kind of go in and out of them a little bit. And I am poking it into the body a little bit forward, just a little bit in front of the ear. And that will help make the ear curve down and in. Sorry, ear chaos. And then you can use the tails. I still have some more tails to finish up. You can use them to shape your ear, stitch it down a little bit in any direction that you want to. Just make some little simple stitches can really adjust the ear placement and the look of your cat. For the arms and the legs, it's a similar kind of deal. The bulky end that you go through the final stitches a few times, that's the paw, so that goes on the outside. The other tail's on your tapestry needle, and I'm just going to make some little stitches right on the edge of the body. The exact placement isn't really too important. It's such a small piece. I think it's helpful to go ahead and turn around to the back and do a few stitches on the back just to get it securely attached and not too floppy. Into the body once more, and then you can weave in and out of the stitches on the body. So because the body is a flat piece, it's good to be a little bit more thorough with this actual weaving, and since you don't have the stuffing on an inside to get it all caught up in. This end, just weave it back through the I-cord. You can poke it through the center of the I-cord or kind of go in and out of the stitches. It's not going to show up, it'll blend right in. And then again, into the body, Make sure you don't pull too hard because it'll scrunch up your arm. Do the same thing going up and down through some stitches and then out the back and the same deal. I've finished weaving in all the ends on my legs, and I was looking at the ears and I remembered there's one other thing that I've done. My cats are fighting in the background if you hear something weird. One thing I remembered about the ears is that I have gone back with, because if you just stitch the bases, they kind of have a, I don't know, they have a weird shape to them, but you can take one of these tails that you just have left in the back of the head and go a little outside, bring it out a little outside the ear, and just catch that very bottom corner, or maybe even up from it a little bit on the side, and pull it down a little. So that's also what I mean by using the tails to shape the ears. And then that's a much nicer, I think, triangle shape. And poke that in again. And do the same with, I still have this tail on this ear. Go down a little farther on the head and catch the little stitch at the base, kind of on the side of the ear. So I'm pulling it down and forward a little. I think that's a bit better. You can also do that with the inside stitch if you want to bring that ear this direction a little bit. I think that would actually be a good idea with these two. There, that's a good ear there. Last thing to do is I left the tail, that very beginning tail, on my cat's tail. Poke that up through the I-cord. I was at a workshop recently and somebody in the workshop, I don't know if they intended to or not, but they were doing this with a tail of a different cat. They pulled the tail up into the body and then they gently pulled on the tail and they made it curl up, and it was very cute looking. So if you want a curly tail, you can do that too. Or even if you want to just give it a little like curl at the end, you can definitely do that when you're weaving in the tail on the tail. Cut off the remaining ends. And we have an inside cat. This is a free pattern from Knitty on Knitty.com, fall 2023 issue. And it pairs perfectly with my new book, Cat Side Up, Cat Side Down. It is not a pattern book, but it's a picture book full of knitted cats. So you can knit a cat to go with your picture book of knitted cats. It makes a great gift. Thanks everybody. I hope you enjoy this pattern.